Tim here once again, View from the South Stands, coming to you Thursday morning after TFC's thriller. Is it fair to call it a thriller? A dramatic, I should say, winner in extra time from former Vancouver Whitecap Terry Dunfield. Racking my brains, I haven't done a look at the actual stats as of yet, but absolutely racking my brains yesterday. I'm trying to figure out when was the last time this team at home has ever come back and won a game in injury time. And I think what we saw Wednesday night at BMO Field against the Whitecaps, where the Reds prevailed 3-2 with a goal in injury time from Terry Dunfield, former Whitecap, and I'll get to that in a second, I think was the first time that's ever happened. I remember when Nick Dazovic took over as interim coach when Preki was fired back in 2010, and D-Row did that late goal in injury time in Houston to get TFC a win. I can't think of any other occasions where that's actually happened off the top of my head, and if I'm wrong, feel free to write it below. The only other goal, if I recollect, that Terry Dunfield ever scored in Major League Soccer was actually, ironically, against Toronto FC in Vancouver's inaugural game at Empire Stadium last year, where he did his leap. I remember he did the leap when he scored against Ecuador in that friendly at BMO Field for Team Canada, and he did the leap in Vancouver and got a yellow card, and I think probably with him not wanting to be suspended for the next game, he actually said, okay, I'm just going to celebrate on the field. I did see him wander over close to the section at section 127, the supporter section, last night, but he didn't jump into the stands. Smart boy. Lots of good, lots of bad last night. There were a couple of stretches where defensively TFC looked very frail. Eckersley continues to play at center back with mixed results. Emery appears to be Mariners' favorite center back right now, over and above the player that played with him, of course, at Plymouth Argyle, one Mr. Eckersley. Ashton Morgan had a good game last night, again causing a lot of offensive threat. Inexplicably, Julian de Guzman, who hasn't been playing much lately, who did start last night and who looked good last night, was subbed off in the 60th minute for Eric Avila. I don't know what's happening there. De Guzman told John Molinaro of Rogers Sportsnet, who, by the way, is really worth a follow on Twitter, even if you don't agree with what he writes. He does break a lot of news, if you don't follow him already. Anyway, he actually talked about how de Guzman is supposedly in the talks of renegotiating his contract. Well, I don't think Paul Mariner is too keen on that, because it doesn't seem to be that de Guzman is part of what Mariner has in store for the long term. A couple of things about the game. I thought Luis Silva coming back into the squad looked really good, had a really nice goal. Torsten Frings had a solid game again last night. Ashton Morgan, as I mentioned, was an offensive threat from fullback. Milos Kosic is a hockey player. He's tough as nails. That boy gets banged around every single game, and yet still plays very well. But there's two things, one about the game and one sort of outside the game, that I think need addressing. One is Vancouver rookie Darren Maddox. He scored 2 goals last night. He scored, I think, 7 or 8 in all competitions, not in all competitions, but in Major League Soccer for the Vancouver Whitecaps. He leads their team in scoring. You don't go into another team's house and taunt the fans. He did it when he scored his first goal in front of section 118, and when he scored the second goal to tie the game late in the second half, or was it an injury time? I think they actually scored to tie it up. He comes over in front of section 113 and starts prancing and dancing around and taunting the fans. Now, some beer cups flew, and I'm not justifying that. I'm not justifying ever throwing anything onto the field. But you don't come over in front of the supporters section in an away stadium and taunt the fans unless you're a complete ass, unless you're a Charlie Davies, for example. He didn't get a yellow card. I hope the league looks at some supplementary discipline. And my good friend Scotty, who runs the TFC Picks website, broke in a new camera last night, and he's got dozens of photos of Maddox taunting the fans last night. And I hope that somebody takes a look at this and realizes that when players try to incite fans, that's when fans that have been drinking, fans that are emotional, that's when from time to time really stupid things can take place. And I really hope that the league takes a look at that, because it's just not sensible at all. The other thing is Nick Soolsma. As you probably are aware by now, about an hour before game time, TFC actually announced that he's no longer with the team by mutual consent. That's 150 grand right there. That's off the salary cap. But it's not as simple as that. If Nick Soolsma would have been released before July 1st, that entire 150 grand would not have counted against the cap. Now it does, which means that getting rid of him doesn't free up as much money as you'd think. I think half his contract still counts against the cap, so you're only freeing up half of what he was being paid in order to bring in somebody new for the second half of the season. And I kind of question the timing of it as well on the flip side. If you're not going to get rid of him before the 1st of July and free up the cap space, you've got João Plata, who's no longer with the team, who's in Ecuador, who's a striker. You've got Nick Soolsma, who can play striker. They're both now gone from the team. The only other striker, real out-and-out striker that this team has, over and above Ryan Johnson and Danny Kouvremans, looks like to be Keith Makubuya, who's recently graduated, of course, from the TFC Academy last year, and who's had maybe minutes of time in Major League Soccer, and who frankly hasn't been favored very much by either Aaron Vinter or it looks like Paul Mariner since the change in management last year. So you've got a dog-tired Kouvremans, you've got a dog-tired Ryan Johnson, and the two players that could possibly provide cover for those guys, at least over the short term, those two players get released. I have to question what the club is thinking in doing that now, whether it be poor cap management, whether it be not having a replacement or replacements lined up to back up Johnson and Kouvremans. Take your pick. It's kind of incompetent on both sides of the coin, if you ask me. There are rumors out there about players coming in, whether it be a player that played, I think, for Paul Mariner, a goaltender from Jamaica is my understanding, that's been on trial with the club right now. I wouldn't be surprised if a center back and or a striker come in. How they're going to pay for all of this, considering that they blew all the allocation money on Plata. They're getting rid of players like Soolsma and Plata after July 1st, which means their salaries still essentially count against the cap. I don't know. I'm not completely up to date on the machinations of the way MLS contracts actually work and really how much allocation money we have. It'd be easier to get nuclear launch codes from President Obama or Vladimir Putin than it would be to find out how much allocation money that this team really has. The last thing I really want to mention as well today is I want to thank a lot of people. I took my mom last night to the game. She's 78 years old, and it was her first time, she's visiting here from Newfoundland for the summer. It was her first time seeing a game in person. If you've seen me before at the games, you know often that I wear these bright goalie gear, the goalie gear that Fry and Kosic wear, the green, the yellow. I wear that so that when Mom is watching the games back home in Newfoundland, she can actually see me. She can see this yellow blob or this green blob. Correction, big yellow blob or big green blob in the stands. And last night I didn't have to do that because she was sitting right next to me, right at the top of the supporter section. So I want to thank everybody that went out of their way to come by and say hi to my mom last night and make her feel welcome. I think she's a good luck charm. I think between now and the end of August, if we need another win desperately, I'm definitely going to be bringing Mom to the top of 113 again, because, hey, that was her first game, and that was the first time that ever happened, that we came back and won a game in injury time. So the Reds play again on the weekend. I'll have another video blog up on probably Sunday after the game on the weekend, and of course I will see you all over the next couple of days as well, as we try to decipher the math of where this club actually stands vis-a-vis bringing in some reinforcements and vis-a-vis the cap. Thank you so much for watching, and you guys have a great day. Cheers.